great following, and just excited to have you back on here, Mark, because we actually have talked before on our podcast, but there were still a lot of questions I wanted to ask you. And thanks for taking the time to do this live interview.
No, I'm happy to do it. Great to be on. And I know we had one supposed to do it last week, and I messed that up by being sick. So glad to be able to do it this week.
Yeah, how dare you be sick, you know? So what we're going to do is we're going to work through an agenda of questions here. And if people have some questions that are tuning into the live feed right now, you can always comment below, and we'll get to those later in the feed if we have time for that. So the first question, Mark, and this was something I wish I kind of asked you on the podcast last week. This one has to do with building a team, because if you're not familiar with Mark and his work, correct me if I'm wrong on some of these numbers, but I believe you've done 120 flips in your career. You have 16 rental properties, and you sold over 1,000 properties as a realtor. Are those all correct?
I think we're up over to 142 flips now. And
so I was off just a little bit.
So
it's so impressive what you've been able to do. And I remember on the podcast when I was talking with you that one of the things you said is building a team has been great for you as far as being able to accomplish these things. And I think when we had talked, actually, you had just gotten back from Disney, and you said you had sold 3 homes while you were in Disney because you have a team that you trust. So can you take us through a little bit part of your process, like maybe when you were smaller and how you've been able to build your team out?
Yeah, it all started. I started in real estate on my dad's team. So he is an agent, and it's just kind of him, one assistant. And then I started working with him after college, and it ballooned after that. But when I really started to need help was when I was listing foreclosures and HUD homes, like you said. You know, after the housing crash, I was selling 200 houses a year, and there was no way I could do all that myself. You know, I was working 12-hour days every day trying to get everything done. Mm-hmm. And I hired my first assistant because there's no way I could go on like that. And after I hired her, and she only was working for me part-time, just doing a few things, it's just like, oh my God, this is so nice. I can hand off the things I hate doing, the busy work. It takes a little bit of time to train, but it makes my life so much easier. And from that point forward, it's kind of like she moved from part-time to full-time. Just a matter of, you know, being able to trust your team and self to let things go, because that's a big part of it for me and other people as well.
Yeah.
And it's not easy either. I mean, you will have times where you have to let people go. You have to get on people for not doing their job. You may not always hire the right people, but there's a lot of people out there who say, I don't want a team. It's too much work. You know, you have to manage all these people. But if you get the right people in place, it is so much nicer. Like I said, you can go on vacation without working. If you get sick, you don't have to worry about working nonstop and prolonging everything and making it worse. If something happens to you, you get in an accident or something worse, I mean, what's going to happen to your business if you have no one there to help you? Yep. So just as a safety net in general, it's been amazing. And, you know, as far as hiring people, I think just referrals has been the best way. But there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of trial and error. Mm-hmm. But just taking that first step to get one assistant, even part-time, can kind of help you jump into it and really show you how awesome it can be.
Yeah, I think because I'm actually going through this right now at RentPrep. I'm looking at building out our team from a marketing perspective. And one of the things is getting started with that, having to do the training is kind of the thing that kind of holds you back a little bit, because you're like, this is going to be more work right now. But if you have that long-term vision in mind, you know, it's less work for you later. So it seems like that's something you figured out pretty early on.
Yes. And one thing I see a lot of people do is they wait until they get so busy they have no time to hire someone. And it's like, well, how do you have time to train them? So you really have to try and be proactive and hire someone before you're in over your head with work. It's tough to do. It's like, oh, I can do all this. I can handle it. But another thing too, is the more people I hire, the more free time I have, which gives me more time to work on the business, not in it. Yep. I end up making almost more money almost every time I hire someone new, because it just frees up so much time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to be had with that, especially for some of the people in our audience in the RentPrep for Landlords Facebook group. I'm definitely one of them. I'm a DIYer, do everything yourself. You know, that whether that means, you know, collecting rent or pounding hammers in the walls, you know, doing demolition, all that stuff. So it's a tough lesson to kind of get over, but it's something that I'm going to try to do a better job of in 2018 too. So thanks for the insights on that. And we're going to head to the next question here. And if you guys have watched this before, I've definitely ripped these from Tim Ferriss's book, Tribe of Mentors. So this first question here, Mark, it's a purchase of $100 or less that has greatly helped you in real estate investing. What would that be?
This would be recently, just Law Depot. I recently found that site.
Yep.
And I created a lease on there. I created a hold harmless agreement. I created a personal guarantee that would have cost me thousands of dollars to have a lawyer do it.
Yep.
And it was like $20 or $30 to create a commercial lease. It was like 50 pages long, and it was so simple and easy. And that saved me so much money. And I'm just like, wow, I can't believe that this is here. So that has been the best thing I've done recently. And it's so easy to use. And, obviously you got to make sure you do everything correctly, but they have state specific stuff. It's a great site.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we hadn't talked about this before, but that's actually something that we have set up for the Facebook group. If people go to rentprep.com/law-depot, and maybe this is something you'll want to do, we've actually set up a reverse affiliate agreement. So it's like $100 for their yearly subscription, but it's $75 if you use that link, because we just passed the savings on to group members. Because I was super impressed with the service too when I checked it out. So if people are listening, you definitely want to check that out. Those state-specific resources are the thing that really got me, that I really liked.
Yep. Nice. No, I'll have to check that out for sure.
Cool. All right. Moving to the next question, and thanks for that tip. I like that. So this one is, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for a later success? Like, do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Yes, I have one I talk about all the time, and it kind of goes back right into the do-it-yourself thing we started with. And I think it was back 2006 or 2007. I wasn't, it was before I got into the REO business and foreclosure business as an agent. I'd flip a house once in a while with my dad, and I thought the brilliant thing to do to kind of make me more money was to do all the work myself on a flip. So I picked out a house. I replaced the windows, the doors, the kitchen, the baths, painted, did flooring, fixtures, took out a wall. And it was the stupidest thing I ever did in my life. It was just, it took me like 6 months or longer to do all the work. I thought I was saving all this money on manual labor, but in the end, it took me so long. I think I lost all that savings and carrying costs and insurance and taxes and all of that stuff. This was 2006, so the market was declining at the same time, which meant the longer I held the property, the less money I made.
Yep.
And then the work wasn't as good. If I would have hired a contractor to do it, or subcontractors, the quality would have been higher. They wouldn't have been learning on the job like I was. Mm-hmm. But the very worst part was the opportunity cost, because while I was spending all that time working on it, I wasn't selling houses as an agent. I wasn't looking for new properties to flip. And it ended up being the worst year of my career by far. And so not only was it incredibly stressful and just a horrible experience being there every day, it cost my business a ton. But at the same time, looking back on it, it taught me, hey, my time is so much more valuable generating business, finding deals, looking at the big picture than it is doing manual labor. Yeah. And from that point forward, I will pull up the carpet in a house to see if it has hardwood. That's about the extent of my labor right now. Yeah. But it's just, it really taught me I have to use other people to help me out. Like you said before, I used to collect rent, manage my properties myself. Now I use a property manager, and that frees up my time so much more. So just the more help I have, the better off I am, and the happier I am too, because I can pawn off all those things that drive me crazy and stress me out. Yeah,
well, that's what it's about at the end of the day. So, if somebody's listening to this, watching this, and it's like you're so stressed out doing this, it's like, give it a try. Maybe you won't die, hiring a contractor.
Yep.
So, all right. I think that's a great tip. Thanks for sharing that. And moving on to the next question here, we have, what is the best or most worthwhile investment you've ever made? So this is kind of a chance for you to brag here, if you'd like.
All right. I'm just going to go simple.
Okay.
The first rental property I ever bought, which was 2010. And even though I'd been in real estate for 8 years prior to that as an agent and doing the occasional flip, that was my first rental I bought. And it took me a while, even after I knew I wanted to buy them, it took me a while to pull the trigger and do it. And then after buying it and kind of getting my feet wet, it just was addicting. I wanted to buy as many as I could. And just kind of buying that first one gave me the confidence that, hey, I know what I'm doing. And even, like I said, me being in the real estate industry, it can be stressful and scary investing in something where you're putting so much money into it.
Yeah.
But from that point forward, I'm like, I just need to, save as much as I can, put as much money as I can into rentals, and just keep building up this portfolio.
Yeah, yeah, I would say probably buying that first one's going to be the toughest, just because all the unknowns kind of get removed after you buy that one. But there's a lot of stuff to worry about. You know, it's like, am I going to get sued? Is this going to work out financially? Am I going to find renters? Am I going to hate this? But diving in and getting started, a lot of times in any kind of business endeavors, you know, the biggest step you can take. So,
yep, exactly.
Okay. All right. Moving to the next question. We have here, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself getting started in real estate?
I would buy more houses and I would focus more on getting good deals. So I bought my first house when I was 22 and I paid $190,000 for it.
Right.
Over 7 years, I think I put, $10,000 or $15,000 of work into it plus my own labor. Mm-hmm. And I sold it for $180,000 in 2009. That's an awesome experience. But no, it just taught me, part of that was the market dropping, which I couldn't control.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a good deal on it. I paid full retail. So if I would have gotten a good deal, taken my time, it just would have been such a better investment. And I wish I would have gone back and, bought a house as an owner occupant, got a really good deal, maybe kept it and rented it out, bought another house as an owner occupant, kept using that low down payment option, or even, flipping them after 2 years and paying no taxes on it, instead of holding that house for 7 years. So I wish I would have bought more houses and got better deals when I was younger.
Yeah, especially when you're younger like that, it's a little bit easier. I actually have a similar story. I bought my first rental, but it was a duplex when I was 23. And I look back and I'm like, man, I should have just been like buying them and just doing the same thing, house hacking your way through a bunch of rentals. But, hindsight 2020, right?
Exactly.
All right. Last question that we have here as far as the canned ones. What bad advice or recommendations have you heard in your profession or in real estate investing?
There's a lot. So there's a lot of people who love to give advice, but haven't ever done it. When I was first, wanted to buy rental properties, it was funny because I told some of the agents in my office and other people, and most of them were like, "Oh my God, why would you want to buy rentals? That's such a stupid investment. You'll have headaches and tenants will be horrible." And I couldn't believe the negative reaction I got from people in the industry. Mm-hmm. And after doing it myself, I just realized they didn't know what they were doing. They would buy full retail properties that don't cash flow. And have a bad experience with it, which is, of course, you're going to have a bad experience when you do that. So there's a lot of people out there, a lot of Debbie Downers who wish they could buy houses, invest in real estate, and have a cousin's uncle's brother who lost money. So that proves that all investments are bad. I just kind of tried to focus on listening and learning from people who had done it, even if they hadn't been successful, but who had actually done it. So I knew what mistakes they made. Or, people who had been successful, because there's a lot of people who love to tell you what to do who have no idea what they're doing. And actually the most recent advice I heard, which I was cringing a little bit because they're pretty experienced investors, were, you can't really cash flow in Colorado anymore, but you get great appreciation. So it's still worth it to buy rentals. And I've never wanted to buy rentals hoping they go up in value. I always want cash flow. So that made me cringe a little bit.
Yeah. I think sometimes when you're going with people's advice, sometimes you got to find where the genesis of that advice is coming from. Sometimes it might just be out of, like you're saying, maybe somebody's jealous, they wish they could get into it, or they just know somebody who knows somebody who had a bad experience, kind of thing. Just to go back a second here, Nick Burns, he was asking about the one answer, best investment he has ever done. And I believe you said that was actually just getting started, right?
Yeah, my first rental property. Yep, just buying that first one. That was that kind of propelled me into wanting to buy many, many more.
Yeah, just getting started. All right. And then I got a few questions actually that came in from Andrew Schultz, who's active on our channel here. He does the Ask the Property Manager segments. So let me see if I can find these here. He said he was asking what you think the upcoming trends in real estate are currently. And you're out in like the Colorado area, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So in Colorado, it's been absolutely crazy. Our median price, where I'm in Greeley, which is like 50 miles north of Denver, not nearly as hot a market as Denver, or expensive, but still a good market. Our median price in 2011 was like 110. Right now, it's almost 300,000.
Okay.
So prices have almost tripled after the crash. And a lot of people around here are asking about a bubble, if things are going to crash, what's going to happen. And I hate trying to predict things, but just looking at the indicators I've seen, I don't think we're anything close to what we were before the last crash as far as lending and house building.
Okay.
I could see things drop off and level off for sure, but I don't think we're ever going to see a crash like that again. I took some numbers, but right now, I think 5% of loans are subprime. So I hear people all the time saying, oh, they're offering these no credit, subprime loans again. Everything's going to crash down. And yes, they advertise those, but almost nobody's getting those loans. It's not like before.
It's a lot
it was
stricter
20,
now, yeah.
Yeah, 20% of people were doing those subprime loans before the crash. So it was a huge difference. The lowest credit rating now for the 1% of loans is right around 620, which is still pretty decent.
Yeah.
In 2001, the lowest 1% were getting houses around with a 500 credit score. So it was just crazy what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then the building too, they aren't building here. They're building some, but just not as much. I think, 2005, they're built about 1.28 million houses in the country. Right. And last year they built 500,000. Yeah. So there's no inventory, and that's why prices keep going up. Yep. So the big question is affordability, if that's going to kill things. But I mean, I hate using this example, but Australia and Sydney has seen prices go up for like 17 years straight with no downturn. Just because things go up doesn't mean they'll come down. But at the same time, I'm not saying they're going to go up forever. So I wouldn't say a crash is imminent, but it could definitely slow down.
Do you have any thoughts as far as like baby boomers? Because I know I've read stuff where people think like apartments are going to become more popular because all these baby boomers are going to need somewhere to live when they downsize. I mean, do you have any thoughts around that?
I've heard a number of people say that because of trends, or millennials want to live in apartments in the city. Yep. And I heard I wish I knew his name, but at a conference, there's someone who ran, the HUD southeast section of the country. And he said, millennials and baby boomers don't want to live in apartments. They just can't afford to live in houses. So if they had the choice, they would have houses if they're affordable. It's just they don't have that choice. And I think you are seeing trends now where as millennials get older and make more money, they are buying more houses. So I think it's kind of a supply and demand thing with apartments, not want to live in those apartments. So I think people still want to have houses. It's just the affordability makes them want to move to apartments. Yeah.
All right. Last question here for you, Mark. And again, thank you for your time for doing this. This actually came from Andrew as well. He said that you were pretty big into foreclosures before. Do you ever see this being a big part of your business coming back in any way?
Like I said, for a while there, we're selling 200 houses a year that were all bank foreclosures, HUD homes. And last year in 2017, I sold one. Yeah. And that's just because our market in Colorado is so crazy. Yeah. There aren't any foreclosures hardly anymore. My personal desire is to not get back into that business again. It was amazing. It was great for me. I loved it, but it's so much more fun to flip houses, and it's so much less stressful to flip houses than to do that because I'm not answering to the banks. Their guidelines are really strict. It's not easy to sell those houses, and you have to do reimbursements for them. You lose a lot of those reimbursements. The commissions are getting lower and lower. So really, it's so much more fun for me to do a flip and make $30,000 than to sell 10 or 15 foreclosures to make that same amount of money.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with either, but I would think that you'd be able to manage the process a little bit better with a flip and know what you're getting into, and just be able to have a little bit more control if you have a good team that you got, working with you.
Yep, exactly. And you're so dependent on outside forces in the REO business as well. Just like, I can do an amazing job, but if there's no foreclosures, I don't have any work. So that doesn't work out very well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps up all of our questions. Thank you for taking some time to do another interview with us, this live one. If anybody wants to check out Mark, his website at Investfourmore, we got a link in the description of this video, and then you can check out the podcast as well that we did with Mark too. So thanks again for being on, and hopefully 2018 is already kicking ass for you, and is just going to do even better.
Nope. Thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Glad to do it. And here's to a great 2018 for you as well.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Take care.